What's going on, guys? What's going on, girls? Sal here, and I'm going to be taking a look at this Thursday night showdown slate between the Saints and between the Cowboys in Dallas. Saints are a 7.5-point favorite on the road, a 53.5-point over-under, so it should be a good game, even though the spread doesn't indicate that. Two teams that are definitely in the playoff hunt. The Saints, obviously, in the playoff hunt, and the Cowboys seem like they have a good shot at winning that division now. What's going on in Washington with Alex Smith being out. But, guys, if this is your first time here, my name is Sal Vetri. Welcome to the channel. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you end up liking this video or you want to look at some other ones, my first look video is out for the week, and you end up subscribing, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can hit that button anytime you want. It's in the bottom right corner. I have a goal to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We're more than halfway there, so thank you to everybody, especially you guys who are continued watchers, already subscribers. Biggest thanks to you guys. Honestly, it means a ton. So let's hit that video right now, or hit that like button on this video right now, smash it, and we can get going on this. At any point, if you have any questions or want to ask me any questions at all, drop it in the description below or in the comment section below. You can check out the description for some other things. And in Thursday's breakdown video I do every single week on my slate, my ideas, what I think about this slate, we're going to be giving away our 500 subscribers giveaway. It's going to be a lifetime, not a year, not a month, not some free membership for like an extended amount of time. Lifetime, until you're done. Your entire life. There's no expiration on it until you expire, right? So we're going to be giving away Draft Dashboard, which is this site right here. It basically just helps with research, lowering research time, getting everything in one spot for you, whether it's snaps, receptions, targets, routes run, all those different types of things. Positions, you can find all the news on teams right here in the Browse Team spot. You can find their depth charts, the guys who are going to be starting in case somebody's out. All those types of things. There's projections that they have, all these different things you can build, optimize your lineup. I've talked about it before. There's a link in the description below. You can get 30 days for only $1, so even if you don't win the giveaway, 30 days for $1. But tune in Thursday, and I'll be telling you how you can get entered into that 500 subscriber giveaway. It's a really good value. I mean, lifetime guarantee for free, so you have to be a subscriber, though. So if you aren't yet, appreciate it if you can hit that subscribe button. But let's get into it, right? Like I said, Saints are a big road favorite. Dallas, when they're home underdogs in general, tend to do well, especially when they're big home underdogs. We have Dallas playing in this game as a home underdog against the Saints. Saints high-powered offense. Dallas actually has a pretty good defense, so we could see a lot of different things go on in this game, so it makes it interesting for game theory, especially since the Saints have a good rush defense. Ezekiel Elliott looks basically unstoppable the last 3 weeks. If we look at Zeke right here, basically he looks unstoppable these last 3 weeks, and he's getting a ton of work in the receiving game. Look at those 5+ catches in 3 straight weeks. That's actually incredible for him because he's basically giving you a floor of 7 to 8 points just in the receiving game alone. That puts his floor probably in double digits, which is rushing upside. But when he comes into a place or when he's going up against a team like New Orleans, it's going to be difficult maybe for him to find space on the ground. He can still get work in the passing game, but we'll have to see how that turns out. That's going to be something interesting to monitor, interesting for game theory. Talk about Monday night slate last night, Texans-Titans. It sucks when you have every single player that's in the winning lineup. One guy brought home $250,000 by a half a point last night. He had the low tight end, Driscoll, whatever his name was, at $300. I had him in my lineup. He ended up putting Watson in the captain spot, Demaryius Thomas, Corey Davis, Mariota, and Lamar Miller, breaking out that huge 97-yard touchdown. I had all those guys in my one lineup. I entered 5 lineups. Usually I do 75% of them, what should happen. So DeAndre Hopkins, Lamar Miller in the captain spot in 4 of those 5. The one I put up, Demaryius Thomas in the captain spot, had a ton of salary left over. I could have had Deshaun Watson in the captain spot. Didn't really think about it too much, so I'm not kicking myself that much. But $125,000 away just from one quick flip of a switch. Had all the players. So that's tough. But I thought the slate overall was interesting last night. We saw a lot of points quickly in that game from both teams, really, and then it kind of wear down later on, especially for the Titans. But we look at this slate, Alvin Kamara. So the last time the Saints were out there, they kind of all put up duds besides Drew Brees. And duds, really, the Saints did fine, but the team just spread the ball to 4 undrafted players who that's never happened before in a game. 4 touchdowns in a game, each going to undrafted players. Very impressive for the Saints. They could basically get anything done with any team in that system. That coach, that Drew Brees, playing at an incredibly high level right now. Only 2 interceptions on the year, so you can kind of feel confident throwing Drew Brees in this type of a lineup. But where do we want to go game theory, right? So if you want to go game theory, you want to say, okay, this is the one that thousands of people are going to split, like this Thursday night slate. Tons of people are going to split. It's going to be one of the most obvious builds. So an obvious build in that situation, in all honesty, is probably going to be a build where you see Zeke in the lineup, you see Brees in the lineup, right? That's going to have probably the 2 biggest weapons on each team, or the biggest facilitators and really getting the most touchdowns, I would say. Definitely Zeke for the Cowboys. Drew Brees getting a piece of all the touchdowns, majority of the touchdowns, especially since Kamara is getting them out of the backfield, receiving as well. So that's where you're going to capture a lot of touchdowns. And then against this Saints defense that's pretty terrible, you could attack them, right? So Amari Cooper, I see, could have another huge game. A lot of public players are going to be playing him because they're going to see 41 points. You're going to see the Saints defense. It is a sharp move as well, most likely, especially on a short game slate. It's tough to sit somebody like this who, if you've checked out his PFF grades, some DFS Twitter guys have been posting them. Since he left Oakland, he's having like one of his best 3-game spans of his career, 4-game spans of his career, I believe. And that obviously a lot of that comes to the last game where Clinton Dix just can't tackle a single person. Again, Clinton Dix, you're terrible. But yeah, so I think this is going to be a standard build start because you still have a decent amount of money left over. You just have to find value here. So is there any value down here? I know we've seen a lot of Dallas tight ends always being down in the space. It says Swain's still out. Not sure if that's actually true yet. But yeah, I mean, you see Schultz was on the game winner about 2 or 3 weeks ago on Monday night when he caught 2 balls for 21 yards. That got somebody enough to win that one. But these Dallas tight ends are basically a toss-up, right? I mean, Jarwin, sure, he catches 2 balls for 25 yards, but this could be the week that he does nothing. Probably will be based on his previous performance, just inconsistent, consistent at getting you less than 3 points, but you don't want that at all. Taysom Hill, I mean, people make a big deal out of Taysom Hill. Yeah, he's taking snaps away from Drew Brees. Like, look, 2 attempts, 1 attempt. Yeah, I know he's on the field. He's like in the slot, things like that. He came over on like an end around one time, scored a touchdown, whatever it was, or got stuffed. He's on the field a decent amount now with Brandon Marshall probably going to be playing in this game. Traquan back. I don't see him ever really being a factor. His price obviously indicates that, but if he'll make a lot of big fuss out of him, yeah, if he steals 1 touchdown all year from Drew Brees and that's the game, it's this showdown slate, then yeah, maybe it kills you. But I don't see it. Like, I don't see this at all. Josh Hill's interesting. He gets some work at the tight end position. He's running more snaps every single week than Benjamin Watson is, so that's something to keep an eye on. Of course, Dallas not the greatest against the tight end, especially if Sean Lee's not going to be playing. So yeah, there's not really much down here. I think Brandon Marshall is interesting, but we didn't see anything out of Cam Meredith, and obviously he probably was injured. They put him on IR, so that could be a reason why that he wasn't getting a lot of run out there. Brandon Marshall, how much he has left in the tank, I don't know. I still think he's a talented receiver. He's a guy who can catch the ball around the red zone. Definitely not a deep threat, but they have Traquan out there. I don't know what they're really using for. Maybe like a 3rd down sticks guy. Definitely a red zone guy. So he does have upside at 1,200. I think he'll be lower owned. Tommy Lewis obviously caught a touchdown last week. Deep one. Don't want to touch anything about that, but I think he's an exciting player. Kirkwood, he got in the end zone. But he did worse than we thought he would based on his previous weeks on Thanksgiving. He was a guy that I was monitoring. Yeah, so I mean, if you think that this is going to be the standard build type lineup, maybe you fit a Cole Beasley in there. Now you have 8,000, so I mean, if you're going to go down and you want to get a kicker in a lineup for some sort of standard build, then you can afford up to somebody in this range and go Traquan. I'm not sure if I really want to target Traquan in this type of build. You could go with something like, if we want to go really standard, is there a way you could fit Thomas, Zeke, Breeze, and Cooper in a lineup? Not Thomas there. I'm sure you can. 4,200, so now we're going to have to, again, find some value, and you can go all the way down if you really want to. To somebody like Brandon Marshall, that gets you up to Michael Gallup. I don't see much upside in Michael Gallup at all. The man catches, if he's lucky, 2 balls a game. I think he's talented, but I think he's still not there yet in the NFL. And I think that there's a lot of receivers. Obviously, Cooper's been the best receiver for Dak in his career. Yeah, it's a small sample size, but it's by far the best conversion percentage on targets. It's by far the most air yards targeted. Dez with Dak was probably one of the worst receivers, actually, even though he was a high-profile receiver. That was mainly with Tony Romo. So Cooper's really been the guy who's standing out. Michael Gallup hasn't been doing much for him, so it could be more of a Dak Prescott issue. Now that I'm looking at this, and I like to do this, now that I'm trying to build lineups like this, it's good to see who you're kind of ignoring. I'm ignoring Kamara at this huge price, and I think a lot of casual players will too, based on the last couple of games. I obviously think that's a mistake. This is something that they want to take advantage of. People are keying in on Kamara. They're keying in on Michael Thomas the last few games. And Kamara's a great in-between the tackles runner, so that's what they've been doing. Look, they ran him in between the tackles, 6.4, 5.5 the last 2 games that they've kind of been taken away. Oh, we lost that page quickly there. I don't know what I just did. I just did some witchcraft. We'll get back to that. But yeah, so Kamara, a lot of people are going to go away from him based off of him being the most expensive guy, and probably rightfully so, since you still have Mark Ingram out there. But I think that's a way to get a high-quality player at lower ownership. If we're going to go for who's going to be like the most owned guy, I want to say Zeke, based on what he's been doing lately, and just he's like all the offense for Dallas. But with Amari Cooper out there, that's not the case really anymore. I would say, if I had to say, I would say Drew Brees is going to be the most owned player on this slate. Upwards of 80% is usually what we see out of the most owned players. Again, DeAndre Hopkins was 80% owned, highest owned player, barely more than Watson this past week at 78, 79%. So it's pretty similar. You could say either of them are the highest owned. But you faded Hopkins and you won. So fading these top owned players is a good strategy because you're automatically in that 20% of the field who, if you don't have them, you have a shot to win, which in these types of tournaments, it's huge. You're getting an 80% bump in your lineup, basically, as long as your other guys do well. It's terrifying to even think about fading Drew Brees, though, because of his MVP career-type year that he's having, 2 interceptions, like I mentioned, going 20-plus almost every single week. But now on a short week, well, it's really not a short week. They both have a week off because of Thanksgiving. But going into Dallas on the road, yes, it's a high over-under. Yes, they're going to be throwing their team's implied for like 4 touchdowns in this game. But does that mean that I want to play Drew Brees? Most of the time, yes. But I'm trying to build like a contrarian lineup here. Let's see if we fade Drew Brees, who I believe will be the most expensive guy on the slate, or the most owned guy on the slate. And let's see if we build a lineup another way. If we go Amari, which I think Amari is going to be a really popular captain, and he just kind of slid into the captain spot there. So let's go Amari. What if we build a lineup with Dak? And again, I don't like putting QBs, but again, running QBs can win you tournaments. We saw with Deshaun Watson last night. That guy took home $250K. Deshaun Watson, yeah, he ran for 70 yards and a touchdown, so that's why. But Dak can get in on the ground, has a touchdown each of the last 3 weeks on the ground. That does bolster his captain potential. And if Zeke is a little bit locked up, maybe they run a little bit more zone reads or a little bit more with Dak, which has been successful for the Cowboys the limited times that they've used it this year. It's scary to picture Kamara and Thomas not going off or being held down back-to-back weeks. Thomas held down really badly. I mean, 3 weeks in a row, really target share and receptions, and he's just because he's getting so much attention. That attention, you would imagine, if Traquan comes back, is going to leave Traquan with a lot to be desired, and he's at a cheaper price. So fading Kamara in another week is very terrifying to me. I'm going to put Kamara in there. So now we have Kamara, just because I think he's going to be lower owned. And if you want to build a contrarian lineup already fading Drew Brees, you have to attack somehow that offense again. Kamara gets the ball on the ground, which he has the past few weeks, 12 plus times, 15 times. He can get in on the ground. Like, we've seen him get on the ground multiple times in a game. If that's the case, you have him in your lineup. That's taking away from Drew Brees. That helps you even more. So this is sort of like a contrarian lineup build, right? So if we want to go down, we want to be a little bit cheaper here. Let's fit Cole Beasley, who I believe will be highly owned, even though every time I play him in these Showdown slates, he does absolutely nothing for me. Showdown slate here, obviously, it was Thanksgiving, did nothing. Tennessee game, absolutely nothing. So he hasn't really done much since Cooper's been there, outside of Atlanta, which anybody does anything against Atlanta. But this is a great spot to get suppressed ownership on him because of that. I like him over Michael Gallup just because I think if they're going to be going down the field, they're going to be looking for Amari. The shorter stuff's going to be going to Zeke, so maybe intermediate. You could see Beasley and Amari getting there, which you roster both of them, you have more upside. So now how do we run this back and we get some exposure to the Saints offense? You can't fit Thomas, right? If you go Thomas in this situation, you can fit Schultz. So this is kind of what happened last night, right? You took the one team's number one receiver, their like backup tight end, who might be the starting tight end, who's going to probably get the most snaps, but Schultz is more of a blocking tight end. If he could just catch 2 balls for you for 4 points, though, he meets value, smashes value. He needs 2.4 points to hit his value. And at this point on a Showdown slate, you don't really worry too much about low value hitting exactly. You just want them to do anything, right? This allows you to get Michael Thomas in the lineup. Now we're fading Zeke and we're fading. This is sketchy because we're fading Zeke, we're fading Brees, probably the 2 highest owned players on the slate if I had to guess. But I don't hate it. The only issue is that Zeke is getting a ton of touches. He's top 10 in gains on his rushes, which means just like a 1-yard gain, but he's top 10 in that. I think he's number 9 in that. His last like 4 weeks have been leading the league in elusive rating. So there's a lot of different things you could do here. If you came off of Thomas and you went somewhere else, you try to go Saquon, so you get or Traquan, not Saquon, so you get Traquan and you get a guy who's a lot cheaper. Now you could fit 5,700 yard guy, $1 guy, but there's not really much there. If you want to go super contrarian, which you already are. A defense, something like that, can fit in here. Kickers, safe points, but really in these tournaments with high-scoring games, it could go either way with that. They're either kicking a lot of field goals, 50-yarders, 2 of them, then you're in the money basically with your kickers, but they can just be getting 4 extra points for you, and then they're not doing much. I kind of like attacking it with this Thomas build. If you go Zeke, though, you kind of want to go full-on Cowboy stack, which not a lot of people are going to be doing as a big underdog. But again, if the game script goes that the Cowboys are going to be trailing by more than a touchdown, you figure Dak's going to be throwing the ball to Beasley and Cooper. Zeke gets goal line carries, and he gets work out of the backfield. 5 catches for 50 yards is not out of the question. If he gets in the end zone on the ground, that's at least a 16-point game, not even counting his rushing yards right there in a game that they're trailing. He's going to stay on the field for all 3 downs. Rod Smith will come in barely. There's no guy who comes in for change of pace for Zeke. But since they've been locked down these last few weeks, yes, Dallas is a good defense. Yes, this is on the road, but they have to go back to their weapons at some point. Brandon Marshall is interesting. I wish we can get up to him at this price. So now you're basically saying, do you want Zeke and Brandon Marshall, who's going to be the new weapon out there? We'll have to see how many snaps he runs. Or do you want Michael Thomas and Dalton Schultz? So who's going to score more, Zeke or Michael Thomas? It could be either of them, right? Kind of like this one a little bit more, going full on Saints taking the lead. Alvin Kamara rushes a couple in. Marshall goes for maybe at his price. He really just needs to get you, if he gives you 50 yards, you're pumped at his price. And he's a guy who can get in the end zone. They'll probably use him by the red zone. Traquan Smith out there going to be taking a lot of snaps away, so I'm interested to see where they'll have Marshall. Is Traquan going to go into the slot? I doubt it. Marshall maybe goes into the slot a little bit. Michael Thomas usually roams around there for a little while. But these are just some types of builds that you can go based on the pricing of this slate that we have here. So I think pricing, though, is pretty good. I think Cooper is a little less or underpriced as I thought he would. Again, I didn't think Kamara was going to be the top price guy. If you want to go to a lineup that's in a high-scoring game, they're usually like good options. Going back both QBs, if it's going to be a 53.5 point total, there's a decent shot, especially since Dak is a rushing QB. Drew Brees, we know that he could do. If you want to go both QBs in this situation and try and build up a lineup around that, let's go back to, say we go Cooper again in the captain spot here. Now what can we fit? Can go Brandon Marshall again. 8,400 to spend, so you can go really high if you'd like, and then you can go mid-range, Michael Gallup range. You got some options there. Defenses, we haven't really touched on those. I think the Saints defense is interesting, but on the road, I'm not really sure I want to touch it in Dallas. Let's go Michael Thomas to get another pass catcher, and then can we run it back with Cole Beasley? So you can do something like this, leave some money on the table to differentiate yourself a little bit, and you're still getting the number 1 receiver for both teams, each team's quarterback. The number 2 receiver, potentially 2 to 3, depends on the week for the Cowboys. I would say Cole Beasley is a sure number 2 receiver out there, definitely the slot guy. And you're getting Brandon Marshall, which, yeah, we need more reports on that, so I would stay tuned to see what you can get out of that. You can come up a little bit and go Kirkwood. With Kirkwood, it's either him or Marshall in that spot for me. So you can monitor and see what's going on with Marshall. If you feel more comfortable going Kirkwood, you can. I think that Marshall is a good play because he's going to get red zone work, and you know the Saints are going to be in the red zone at some point in this game. And then he's also going to be getting looks no matter what because he's a matchup problem size-wise for some of these undersized Dallas D-backs. So that's just the way I'm looking at the slate. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think that there's not a lot of value outside of Brandon Marshall. Maybe if you want to take a shot on these dart plays at tight ends, I kind of want to stay away from them at this point. There's just so many. Rico Gathers is a guy who should be on the field. He's probably the most athletically gifted out of all of them. But he just hasn't been on the field at all. They're just not putting him out there. That's Dallas's issue. Maybe there's some issue with him. He should be on the field, though. Austin Carr, not a guy I want to take a shot on who catches one ball for a touchdown. Again, that's going to be good for you, but you really need him to catch a touchdown. And how is regression going to keep up with him? Will he come back down to earth, catching a touchdown in back-to-back weeks, not having a touchdown all year? I think he will. He runs very limited snaps. For some reason, they use him around the red zone. Interesting. He's had 3 red zone targets in the last 2 weeks. Could have all 3 touchdowns, but the one ball got deflected. It was a little bit behind him. So I think this is another lineup that you could build if you wanted to fade Zeke. You wanted to play both quarterbacks, which is smart in a high-scoring game. Zeke is going up against a tough defense, like I said, but he's a 3-down goal line, independent of game flow. He's going to catch the ball. If they're down by 15, he's going to get you points no matter what, as opposed to somebody like Mark Ingram, who I haven't even touched on, who he might go under on since I'm not even talking about him. But Mark Ingram at his price, he's a guy who, if they're down, the Saints, which again they're not supposed to be because of game script, but if somehow they do get down and Vegas is wrong, he's basically out of the game and you're going to get nothing from him because Kamara's going to be coming in passing down situations, probably red zone situations as well. So the most obvious way that this game is going to go is Dallas is going to be trailing or close the whole game, but really not in control of the game. That's what Vegas is predicting. If that's the case, you do one of those previous lineups that we said. You just jam in all the big guys up here. You jam in the Michael Thomas, the Kamara, the Drew Brees, and then you go from there on the other side if you want to bring it back with Dak and Amari Cooper. You want to be a little bit contrarian. You do the lineup maybe around fading the higher-owned guys like Drew Brees, like Zeke, I think Kamara at his price is going to be higher owned just because he's the first guy on there, and a lot of guys will just try and fit that in. But I think that for the most part, relative to where he's been all year in these showdown slates, he's going to be a lot less owned. Definitely a lot less owned than last week. And I think this is going to be the week where you see more Zeke and more Drew Brees. And that's funny that Zeke and Kamara are playing after they were like the two big guys to target on Thanksgiving. You had to choose between them. I chose a lot of Kamara. I chose Zeke and some, but not enough. But yeah, so that's it on this Thursday night showdown slate. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Check back in on Thursday. I'm going to put out a breakdown video, and we'll do a 500 subscriber giveaway for that one. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button right now. Hit the like button. Drop a comment. You check out the description below to check out this site right here. Again, Draft Dashboard if you'd like. This is just looking at, so like we can go really quick and we can go look at this showdown slate. You can see who they have as like high projected players. So yeah, you see Dak has a great matchup based on it being the Saints, of course. So maybe that's something to target in your captain spot a little bit more. We didn't talk about that too much in the captain spot. And then you see there's just really not a lot of great matchups for everybody else based on the Cowboys having a good defense and the Saints having a good run game, right? So really all it helps is Dak and some of these receivers out here. Again, Amari Cooper, Cole Beasley, Allen Hurns. Not Allen Hurns, we don't want to play him. Maybe you do play him over a guy like Gallup for a guy who's going to be lower owned and cheaper. But this is just where you can see some more stuff. You can see information, their snaps, their touches, projection, all those different types of things. So this projection says 0. Projection is somewhere in here. The projection is just not here right now, but they're probably actually doing those right now. It's kind of soon. So that's just where you can see some of this stuff. You can check wide receivers, different positions. So that's in the description below. It's $1 for the first 30 days. We're going to be giving a lifetime giveaway on Thursday. Appreciate it, guys. Good luck in the slates, NBA, whatever you're playing Thursday night. Peace.